What's up, guys? How are we doing? It's been a while. Hopefully, we get some of you in here so I can confirm whether or not I've got sound, or am I talking to no one? My favorite part of the stream, the awkward opening part. Am I even live? I don't know. I think so. There we go. Let's see. Okay. Just got the confirmation. Audio's good. We are good to go. Give me about a minute or two, and we will have launch on what should be a pretty fun show back in the swing of things. It's been a while. It's been a really long time, in fact. Haven't done one of these since looking at my schedule here. I haven't done one of these since November. And I haven't been particularly busy with any one thing. I just haven't had time to do them. But now I am. Now I get to do it, and I'm pretty stoked. Pretty excited to get back up on this horse. Got a few things in store today. Listen to a little bit of new music from a friend that has been sending along some music. Gonna check that out. A little emo style music. I think we got. I was gonna go over some music news, but I don't really think there's a whole lot going on right now that hasn't already been covered. Maybe we could talk about Travis Barker and his never-ending bad hand. But that's kind of what's going on in the world of music. Not a ton of interesting stuff right now, so won't be a ton of news on this show. So we'll go through that. Actually, the mid part of the show, going to watch an old DVD extra from Epitaph Records. We're gonna check out some Epitaph. I guess you would call it Epitaph propaganda to see what they had going on about 20 years ago. See what kind of stuff they were feeding us. And then we are going to close this out because it is March after all. So we're going to have a little bit of a bracket fight. We're going to have a bracket fight between 8 punk rock frontmen. 8 punk rock frontmen from late 90s, early 2000s era. Because there'll be plenty of frontmen. But we're just going to stick to that era. Give me 1 second. Let me get everything shouted out. Let me make sure everything's good to go. And then we'll get started. I really need background music to give you guys. Shoot, I'll solicit background music right now. Anyone that's watching, if you want to absolutely royalty free, send me some tunes of a band that you're in. I will definitely use it as bed music here. What's up, Josh? Long time no talk. Cambridge, Ontario. Canadian. Is there a Canadian tour I just saw get announced? It might have been like Megadeth. I don't think it was punk rock. Good to see you again, though, Josh. Hope all is well. Hope everyone is well. It's been so dang long. All right. Okay. I think we're good to go there. Let's go ahead real quick. Let's start out as we're still kind of filtering our way in there. Let's check out a new song by my buddy Ben Dehan. Now, Ben Dehan, I wonder what the appeal will be on this channel to Ben Dehan. Because on my other channel, which I haven't used in a really long time. He his videos got a little bit of traction on there. Very much modern pop punk, not the stuff that I think we usually talk about on this channel. But we're gonna check out his video. He got a new video out. Gonna check it out. And then after that, we'll move on to the Epitaph stuff. So I'm gonna put myself right here. Let's watch this video. Let's get some more people in here. Get settled in. Get your friends in on all the action, and then we'll go ahead and get started for real. Broken Bones is the name of Ben's song. And as I understand Ben's solo act, been in bands before, done Warped Tours, the whole deal. But now mostly a solo. I believe he does it with his wife as well. And that was Ben Dehan with Broken Bones that he sent this way. Thanks you for that, Ben. Pretty cool little tune there. Little mild tempoed, not a lot of instrumentation that you can really hear in there, but I think the bones of a song and a pretty cool looking video. Josh, the Flatliners coming through. 20th anniversary. Isn't it crazy, by the way, Josh, how many like 20th anniversary tours and the such that we have these days? Like for bands that we don't think of as that old either. And I say that because we're going to watch a video here in a minute that is literally 20 years old. And a lot of the vibe of it is going to feel like it was just yesterday. So we'll check that out here 1 second. All right. So I think what I'm going to do going forward is I'm going to start a little segment called DVD Extras. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger, I used to live for DVD extras. Of, yes, regular movies, but also DVD extras from some of the punk rock DVDs that I would have. I mean, I watched the hell out of those things. Probably more than the actual DVD. You know, because you'd watch that, you'd have the commentary, you have all that. I love those old DVD extras on a punk rock DVD. It's really the heart of the DVDs. But I think the best one, or at least one of the best ones ever, was the Epitaph documentary that came with the Punkorama DVD from 2003, from February of 2003. So this thing's a little over 20 years old. I'd be curious how many out there still have the Punkorama DVD, or at least still remember it. Now, everyone knows about the Punkораmas, the comps. Those are all over the place. But let me give you an image of what exactly I am talking about here with the Punkorama DVDs. See if you can see, very tiny on my screen there, those old Punkorama DVDs, the old Punkorama DVD. Now, if you remember that DVD, it had like basically, I want to say every Epitaph video, but not quite. There was actually quite a bit of Epitaph videos that weren't on those DVDs, but everything you would need. You had American Jesus, you had Sorrow, you had Sticking in My Eye, you had The Offspring's Come Out and Play, you had Rancid Nihilism, Rancid with Salvation. You might have had Golden Gate Fields, although I'm not sure. So definitely wasn't all of everyone's videos. Far from it. But you had a nice collection on these Punkorama DVDs. But in my opinion, the best part of the Punkorama DVD was the documentary that it came with. We are going to watch that documentary. Hopefully, knock on wood, and none of you guys snitch. There's a little bit of copyrighted music in this. Hopefully we're able to kind of survive and squeak our way through. But then it's on after that. And what I want to do mostly is see how this is painted versus all the information that we have nowadays. We've got 2 books by Bad Religion. We've got a book by NOFX, which could factor in here. We've got Smash, the great Ian Winwood book. I want to see how that holds up. What'd you say there, Josh? Literally saw them about 20 years ago in Toronto when they were first starting out, and was blown away how fast and tight they were for being young kids at the time. Yeah. Time sure flies. So, the debate, Fat Mike, Graffin, and Tim. The debate, actually, John, and it'll be a little later in the show, but it's going to be between 8 different frontmen from that time. Maybe preview the bracket a little bit. As far as the bracket's going to go, it's going to be Matt Skiba, Greg Graffin, Fat Mike, Tim Armstrong, Joey Cape, Tony Sly, Davey Havoc, and one more, and I can't recall who the 8th man is. Oh, and Jin Limburg from Pennywise. Those are the 8 I selected. Those were not necessarily the best 8, just 8 that I selected to have a face-off and have a little bit of fun on the bracket. But we'll get to that in a second. Speaking of books, though, before I get on to it, I put this out on the community tab a couple days ago. Got a little bit of response from you guys. If any of you guys have this book right here, Punk USA, The Roots of Green Day and the Rise and Fall of Lookout Records. If any of you guys have this, we will be having like a book club night on the stream here in a couple of weeks. So get it read up. I've obviously just started. I use receipts as bookmarks. But if you want to have like a book club night and I have some topics I think we'll lay out from it, go ahead and queue that up. Also, one more plug before I get to the Epitaph video. Twitch. I don't know if it's going to be this Thursday, but eventually, and I've said this for a few months, we're going to start a Twitch Thursdays where we listen to a lot of popular music, break down some new stuff. We're going to do long segments, not just punk related, but we'll do some metal segments. We'll do some popular music segments. YouTube, we gotta keep it how it is because of the restrictions and such. Okay. Let's watch this Epitaph video.
We had any idea how big it was going to be, but you kind of knew from the very beginning that something was happening.
I just got caught up in it. It's just so exciting being here, all the things that were happening.
We were kind of starting to feel like we were doing something that was really counting.
Fletcher hasn't aged that much. I'm just going to say that. Like, I don't know, he looked young back then, but he hasn't aged that much.
We had like 20-foot ceilings. We had like...
Brett looks completely different.
Records stacked to the ceiling.
We could not ship the records out fast enough, it seemed like, you know.
We were just blowing up.
What good thing for?
You know, when I first started the label, I really had a very simple mission, and that was, I want to create a label that keeps their bands happy. In the 80s, when I started this label, basically, if you were a band, you hated your label. It just, you know, even the indies back then used to rip off their bands. So, I mean, you know,
Yeah, John, I want to get the Livermore book, too. I actually want to make an extended video with the Livermore book, this book, and the documentary. Pick it up and kind of compare all three and compare what they have to say.
I'm coming at this from the point of view of an artist because, you know, I started out in a garage band. I didn't start out as a businessman. So I guess maybe that's where I got my perspective. And I thought, okay, you know, I'm going to start a label that an artist can be comfortable with.
I've always had the philosophy that nobody knows a band's audience better than the band. And we could sit here and we can, you know, we can have these brainstorming sessions and try to guess what it's all about. But these are people who are up in front of that crowd every single night doing their thing. They know what's going on. They know what their crowds are responding to. So we always take very seriously, you know, the band's input and who it is that's listening to them, what their audience is like.
We definitely have like more of a family relationship with our bands, and I would guess.
And that dude, right, Jeff Abarta, he's like the OG Epitaph guy. Like, he's the Epitaph guy of Epitaph guys. First employee, I think. He's always mentioned. Oh, there it says first employee. But he's always mentioned, like, in all these books.
Many, if not most, other labels have.
Our bands get to do what they want to do, for the most part.
Epitaph's just really good and clean and honest, and they had, you know, a roster of devoted touring bands on a regular basis and created a consistent grassroots fan base.
I think the first 5 bands or 6 bands signed all turned into be really great bands.
Everyone had a passion for this, you know, and I think that's what made a difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the old days, yeah, you know, artists would come in and make phone calls or whatever, help us stuff envelopes. And, you know, at the same time, in the old days, you had the president of the record company pushing the buttons at the sound console. So it was all very, very much like a family.
I felt like I was part of something, like, the whole time. Since I've been into punk rock, since I heard my first songs that got me hooked and stuff, and just being on Epitaph, I mean, I felt like I was where I belonged in the punk rock scene.
Labels are the enemy, generally.
We're the label, you're the artist, and you work for us. That's always been the model. And we just looked at it and we just flipped it. And we said, hey, you're the artist, and we're the record company, and let us work for you. And as long as we look at it that way, we can't possibly make a wrong decision.
It's interesting how we talk about Epitaph, because I think some people have lost interest in Epitaph just because they've expanded their horizons outside of punk rock. Like, they still put out punk rock. They still are a premier punk rock label, but labels just aren't as important anymore. So Epitaph is not the force, I don't think, specifically to punk rock that it was before. Like, it's not as important to be an Epitaph band as it was back in the 90s or back when this DVD was made. With that said, they're still a very successful label, and they have a ton of stuff that people listen to. Like, they're still a very relevant label, just not necessarily for punk rock. And I gotta say, a lot of the stuff they put out, I still genuinely like, even if it's not in the punk rock lane. Like, it's close enough that if I listened to a lot more mainstream music, I'd probably be into the stuff that Epitaph puts out.
Nobody has ever really told us how to do this. So we kind of get to make it up as we go along and figure things out on our own. And I know that we do a lot of things different than the majors do, but I think better.
We're an indie label. I mean, we started out of the back of a car, you know, figuratively speaking. We started out of a closet, I guess you could say. LA in the early punk days was the exact opposite of how it is nowadays. There were hardly any bands, And all these
We'll see, John, because it ends in 2002, so I'm not sure about that.
kids super interested in punk rock. Now you've got 10 million bands and 10 million labels and a finite number of kids to experience them all. It was kind of part of the punk rock scene and part of the punk rock culture to put out your own 7-inch. And the punk rock record stores that existed really had a lot of loyal customers. And, you know, we'd bring them a box of records on consignment. And we'd come back next week and they'd sold half of them. We'd come back 2 weeks later, they'd sold all of them. Then we'd give them another box. Back then, Epitaph was just, a name. And, we had to have a name to put on our 7-inch. Your 7-inch has to be on some label, right? So, me and Greg were both really into King Crimson when we were kids. There's, on one of the records, I think it's The Court of the Crimson King. And there's a song on that record, I forgot the title of the song, but the lyric in the song says, "Confusion shall be my epitaph." And there's a big echo on the word, and it's cool. And we were just rocking out to that song and hanging out at band rehearsal and thinking what we would call the label if we made a 7-inch.
See, kids, they were always into prog. So, Into the Unknown was not a surprise. In fact, it was predictable.
Hey, Epitaph. And that's where it comes from, me and Greg geeking out listening to prog. I don't know if it's a good name or not. I mean, everyone says, hey, what does the name mean? Wow, it's, wow, it's like the words on your gravestone, man. Like, after you die, your music will be left behind, which is true, but I mean, we just never really put that much thought into it. It wasn't really, it was just like, oh, that's a cool word. Those are the words on your grave. Cool, it's just like, it's just very teenage, it's just like, that's punk. Someone explained to me, hey, you don't need to drive around to every record store in LA. You can sell to something called a distributor. And they will take, not just, 5 or 10, they'll take boxes from.
I mean, this DVD is interesting, but all the little tidbits from the songs they're playing, I just kind of want to listen to the songs.
And they will pay you for those boxes. And I was like, really? I can remember the day. I went to, the first distributor I ever sold to was this place called Gem. And I went up to a guy, I remember his name, Bob Say. He's like, yeah, we love Bad Religion. We'll buy some from you. Okay, cool. What do you pay for them? What should I sell them for? He's like, well, like $4 a record. This is before CDs, Like, okay, how many do you want? Like, I'll take 2,000. Like, what? Yeah, I'll take, 2,000 and pay you $4 each. Like, that's $8,000. Uh-huh. Okay. I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. I was like, oh my God. The second release.
I think we need a little bit of easy for me to say. I think we need a bit of a re-examination on exactly what the deal is with How Could Hell Be Any Worse? Like, what was the scale that it actually sold at, and what was the influence of it? Because I've read a lot of the books lately on Bad Religion, so I've been kind of steeped here. They seem to kind of waffle with its importance. I get the feeling the band themselves, well, yes, they venerate that record because it's so special to them. They don't look at it as necessarily this great success. They definitely have Suffer being that album. So I'm just curious what it actually did. Like, what was the penetration really like for that thing? Because it feels like the EP was really where they got going anyway. So I think that matters.
Release we ever did was the Vandals, Peace Through Vandalism. The Vandals' first record. It was produced by Tom Wilson. Then we did our little side excursion called Into the Unknown, which was another Bad Religion record.
Guys, and here's another thing. If you're an Into the Unknown head, what's wrong with you, man? I gave that record a chance about a month ago when I was reading the Graffin book, and I thought, you know what? Let me give it a shot. Into the Unknown can't be that bad. And there's a lot of records, and it might be a segment, hint, hint, coming up in a week or two of great records or great bands that have like odd records that I think Into the Unknown is the poster boy of that. I mean, maybe if you're into prog, you like it, but it had no appeal. Zero, zilch, no appeal for me. That album did at all. Let's see what Brett has to say about it.
Which is good luck finding it nowadays.
Which also you can find it all over the place. Every time I go to the vinyl shop over here, there's copies of Into the Unknown. Don't know if it's because it's a collector's item, or is it simply because nobody buys it when they get it in.
To give official numbers, we shipped 10,000. I think we had 11,000 returns. I don't know how that happens. But that basically quelled my enthusiasm for Epitaph for a little while. We just had a huge flop. And it wasn't like, I had a lot of money or anything, and so I couldn't really afford to have a huge flop. So I kind of said, all right, maybe I'm not cut out for this after all. So there was a period of activity where Epitaph wasn't really going. But the records we had made were still out, but there just wasn't anything new being made now. In that interim, I had a bunch of different gigs. I worked at a record distributor. I worked at Bomb. I worked at a couple different recording studios because I had gone to school for that, and I liked it. So what I did next was I started West Beach Recorders with my buddy John Girdler. I had a few bucks, and he had a few bucks. We put them together. We bought some crappy equipment, put it in this little space that we rented from this other studio. So we were like in the back closet of this other studio, and we kind of set up West Beach. And
John, I've never dove into that one. I like almost everything by Face to Face though. But yeah, I don't think anything could be quite as off as Into the Unknown.
That was West Beach's first location. Me and John split up, and John got bought out by a guy named Donnell Cameron, who's my partner to this day in West Beach.
Yeah, it wasn't a very unlikely meeting. Here was this kind of...
I believe West Beach Recorders has shut its doors once and for all. But I think that's really how Brett paid the bills until Epitaph really got cooking in the mid-90s.
A square-looking guy, older guy from Canada. Next to this kind of punk rock California guy from Woodland Hills. And... I came to LA to go to engineering school, and after I got out of engineering school, Pat told me about a guy who had a little studio who needed some help.
Me and Don were working real hard at West Beach, and we were putting in, I'd give you an idea what West Beach Recorders was like. We charged $15 an hour for 24-track analog recording studio, and that included us as the engineers. After paying the studio costs and all that, me and Don were probably working for about $2 an hour. And, but working so many hours that we could pay our rent and put food on the table. But it was really hard. And so I thought, okay, I'm not making any forward progress here. How am I going to ever make any money? One time I had some success, as a record label a long time ago. Maybe I should try that, and I could do it out of the back of West Beach. And me and Donnell took West Beach and moved it to this place in Hollywood, a street called Vista Del Mar. West Beach had a little office with a closet, and that became Epitaph.
Now, I understand they're cutting for time, but I feel like there's a lot more detail that probably needed to be figured in there. I think it gets a little hazy, though, because, as he said about the West Beach stuff, so there's a lot of stuff that Brett, produced on that wasn't actually released on Epitaph, but his fingers are all over, and I think we think of as more Epitaph or Epitaph adjacent.
And they're running an office, the lounge, and the studio out of one tiny little house.
It's got this little wood desk with a phone with a little mini tape answering machine, and that was Epitaph. And then I had a broom closet that I had some boxes of vinyl, and that was it. That was our place.
And we went to West Beach just because Brett was in Bad Religion and he was recording bands. And since Bad Religion were our favorite punk band, we met him, and he was pretty cool.
NOFX recorded Liberal Animation, S&M Airlines, Ribbed. Bad Religion recorded Suffer, No Control, Against the Grain there.
NOFX had just finished their album, Down by Law, was doing an album, and we had our first, real recording experience with Brett and Donald, and it was pretty much hell.
We fought so much in the studio. We were yelling at each other, and this is absolutely true. Brett quit that record twice. He walked out of the studio and left and didn't come.
I mean, to be fair, it's only Ribbed. you know, he didn't quit on White Trash or actually he didn't work on those records, right? Like, didn't they have? Wasn't there like a button of heads between the two of them? And so yeah, they were on the label, but they didn't actually work together in the studio anymore. I want to say that's true.
Come back to the next day. It was pretty gnarly.
Brett got really mad at me, threw me out of the studio about 15 times, and then took his name off the album because he hated it. Only the way it sounded. He loved the album, just hated the way it sounded, and he said it was my fault, which it was.
It's been a lot of fun working on the records, and I've gotten to see the bands, grow up, go from being like punk rock kids, and now they're like adults with lives, and it's just been great to be involved in the process.
Then Bad Religion came, and they said, and they had still been going for the last few years, but without
Yeah, John, they're kind of odd.
me, and Hetson was playing guitar instead of me. So anyway, Bad Religion had a gig at Gilman Street. Greg Hetson couldn't go because he was on tour with the Circle Jerks. Greg called me up and said, "Hey Brett, come on, just come play the show. We have this show. It's gonna be fun."
Thank God for Hetson, by the way, though. Like Hetson and Baker, unsung heroes in the Bad Religion story.
And it's at Gilman Street. And I said, "No way, I don't remember the songs, but I don't know, come on, and he, "Oh, come on, you got the van, we're going up there." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll try it." So I went up there, and it was super.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the 3-person harmonies is what Mike always talks about. Whenever he said like he realized like we just couldn't do Bad Religion, we weren't that good. It's one of the great things about NOFX is their realization of their limitations. Like the whole rationale for not signing was that they were gonna flop, and I think that's amazing.
Super fun, and Gilman just went off. We all decided to write some new songs, and after like 7 rehearsals, we had the Suffer record written.
Again, that seems like a much more simplified version of how this story has been told in all the books.
That was kind of when Epitaph really got started up for real. The first record actually was L7. It was before the Suffer album. And, Suffer did very well, and L7 actually did quite well. The next group I signed after that was NOFX. And then the next group I signed after that was Pennywise. And then I think Down by Law, and then I think Rancid. So, all boom, boom, boom right in a row.
Yeah, and I think the Rancid signing came a little later because it was a little bit conditional on Tim getting his stuff together, and so even though I feel like they would have progressed a little sooner. And yeah, I always forget that Down by Law is part of that whole mix, John. Absolutely.
And it seemed like every group I signed did very well. Oh, and actually before I signed Rancid, I signed The Offspring.
That seems like something you should mention. That matters.
So I was just like, I was on what you might call a roll.
I was working at Epitaph one afternoon, and someone knocked on the door. And I went and answered the door, and it was Jeff Abarta. And he was very funny looking. He had a suit and tie on.
Mike opens the door, and I'm just like, okay, I'm a geek.
This guy comes in and...
Yeah, Josh, do we know what happened to Fat Mike's podcast? Or are you just saying, like, is that still going to be a thing? Fat Mike? Like, I don't know what's up with that.
I might be remembering this wrong, but I think he had like a button-down shirt and a tie.
And it was a skinny new wave tie. And we were like, who is this Yahoo?
And he looked really square, right? And this is this young kid, really clean cut.
And I think he had a Save On. Hi, my name is Jeff. I work at Save On too.
And he's like, "Hi, was this Epitaph?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, I'm here to apply for a job. I'd like to work at Epitaph." I'm like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, I've never hired anybody before, and I'm not sure if I can pay you anything because I don't make enough to pay an employee, And he goes, "I don't care. I'll work for free." And I'm like, "Well, okay, you're hired. I can't turn that down."
I had gone from working at Save On, where you get these nice printed checks that have your tax deductions, to having this guy with purple hair handwriting me a check, every, couple weeks or whenever he sort of got around to it.
And I said to Jeff, "All right, I'm leaving the company with you because I have to go on tour. So it's just you. And he's like, okay, what do I do? I said, all right, well, just sit here all day. And if the phone rings, if it's a distributor, here's how you fill out an invoice, and here's how you call the trucking company, and just ship it to them. And that's pretty much all you have to do. And if someone else calls, just take a note. This is before cell phones. I mean, we are ancient people here. He could not call me in Europe, okay? It was like, I'm going.
I still find it weird that Brett ever toured with Bad Religion. Just because in my consciousness, I see him as the studio guy who helps write with Bad Religion and puts everyone out. I always just forget, like in the early 90s, like he toured with them. It seems such an odd fit, and I can't really explain why. It just is. Like, live Bad Religion doesn't necessarily have Brett. Oh, definitely. And I think they get into Smash quite a bit in a little bit, John. All right, so Smash was your gateway drug. There's a good video idea. We should do gateway. Gateway. We wouldn't put drug in the title because we'll get knocked down on YouTube. But gateway albums, I think, are super, super important.
And he just would come to work every day, and he would just basically he would play hockey. He'd like hit a hockey ball against the wall with his hockey stick for 8 hours and then go home.
Those are the days, man.
Now, Fat Mike says he remembers he worked for me down in that place too.
I worked there for 2 weeks. No, maybe a month. I don't know.
And I'm not sure. Maybe Jeff remembers it. If that remembers it, I don't remember that.
I was starting Fat Records at the same time, so worked there a couple weeks.
So as we watch this, then, guys, I agree, Josh. Throw your gateway suggestions in there, gateway albums, and then I'll put that on the community tab. That's a cool one. I guess is Fat Mike, good business owner, probably not a great employee.
Get some insider information. See?
But Mike wouldn't lie, so I'm sure it's true.
This is what I remember about working there. Is there was only 3 records on Epitaph. There was Bad Religion, Suffer, Bad Religion, No Control, and NOFX, S&M Airlines. And this is how I would ship the orders. The invoices would come in, be 100 Suffer, 100 Bad Religion, No Control, nothing for NOFX. The next one, 150 Suffer, 150 No Control, 5 NOFX. And one day I remember I shipped out about 10,000 Bad Religion CDs and about 150 NOFX. Good memory.
94 is when the Unknown Road record hit.
All right, no disrespect to Unknown Road, to Pennywise. We're going to talk about Pennywise in a little bit. Great band, obviously. But when you put 1994 on there, Pennywise was not what I was expecting to come up first.
That 100,000 threshold.
So obviously it was caused for celebration.
We threw a party over at the
Oh, I remember this story.
Frolic across the street.
And we had a little Mexican bar.
Bob's Frolic Room 3.
Okay, so it was Bob's Frolic Room. That tells you how up I was.
Frolic Room 1 in Hollywood, Frolic Room 2, I don't know where it is. Number 3 opened up right across the street from us.
And we had a big party for Pennywise, which I'm sure you'll hear other stories about.
All of us there at Epitaph showed up there, early. Started drinking. Big cake for Pennywise. By like mid-evening, 10 o'clock, something like that, we're all really smashed. Fletcher's really smashed. And I walk up and he's sitting there and he's lighting matches with his teeth and flicking them out. And I walk up to Fletcher and I'm like, hey, how do you do that? I'm really drunk. And he goes like this. And he flicks the match, and as it's sparking up, douses it right into my face. Just like it entered it right into my face. And then I proceeded to try to punch him.
He became the Suffer guy. That's what happened. He just became engulfed in flames, and he was a Suffer guy. That was Fletcher showing respect to the boss. That's what he was doing. Nothing more, nothing less.
And I was carried out by all my friends.
I got out of there. Yeah, I saw shit going down, so I was just like, oh, I gotta go. It's time to go home now. See ya.
I left. And Fletcher felt really bad about it, and my friend Jimmy goes back in and told me he's an asshole, and Fletcher, and told him, Fletcher, he shouldn't have done that. Fletcher proceeded to just cause complete mayhem.
That night pretty much got pretty ugly. There was some broken stuff and some reporters that got worked over a little bit, some journalists. I remember I nailed Andy right in the eyes with a Cadillac margarita.
I knew that, it could get ugly. So, I had to leave.
I think I ended up at Small's Bar with Jimmy, right?
Jimmy Hole, yeah.
Jimmy Hole.
Yeah.
Giving him a lecture on why it was okay for me to burn John Wall in the face with an Ohio blue tip.
Wound up at another bar with Jimmy, loaded up a pile of matches on his arm and lit it on the bar. He still has a big old scar from that. And then
Fletcher's like no different these days, right? Isn't that the thing about Fletcher? He hasn't changed really one bit. But it's okay. Like, guy never had any kids, never had to get a real job. Like, if there's ever someone that could have just complete Arrested Development, I think it's Fletcher. I think he most qualifies.
he wound up later on that night inside of a tree with a bunch of cops with flashlights and guns.
Oh, actually, yeah, you know what? I actually wound up in jail that night. Yeah, well, like, what happened was the bartender didn't like the lecture I was given with the flaming book of matches coming off my arm, and he didn't even wait. He just called the cops, and he told me the cops were coming for me, so I thought, I'm fucking out of here anyways, so I climbed up on the roof of Smalls, and I was hiding up there. I could see the police helicopter coming in, but it was so far away, I'm like, there's no way he'd see me. So I got under this tree on the roof. And then I was remembering an episode of Cops where they have the infrared detectors, because he was just hovering on me at the spotlight. I'm like, how the fuck did that guy see me? So the infrared detectors got me. There was like 3 fire trucks, 2 paramedics, 15 cop cars around the whole block. And then they took me to jail.
Not enough personnel to take down Fletcher, by the way.
Got bailed out like 10 in the morning. We had to leave. No, I got bailed out like 7 in the morning. And just threw up the whole way home, out the car window, in rush hour traffic.
Fletcher getting smashed can be a very scary thing.
He's got no scar. I got like a scar the size of something big.
I forgave him the next day. It was incredibly funny because as he's flicking the matches at me after he'd done that to me, he's like going, "Claw hammer."
He won. I lost. But it was good.
There we go. 1994. That's what it should be. The year punk broke.
That changed my life. 94.
Yeah, 94. 94 was a good year for Epitaph, man.
That year was insane.
We just blew up at that time, you know? The phones wouldn't stop ringing. The record, we could not ship the records out fast enough, it seemed like, you know? It was crazy times.
That year we had the Offspring smash, Rancid, Out Come the Wolves, and then...
No, you didn't. Out Come the Wolves was 95. Right? I'm not crazy. I don't think so.
And although Bad Religion left Epitaph, that's the year they did Stranger Than Fiction. Elsewhere, Green Day did Dookie. That was the year that punk rock showed up on the mainstream radar.
It was.
There was also punk and Drublic that year. Yeah. Rancid had Let's Go in 94. Self-titled 93, Let's Go in 94, Wolves in 95. Because isn't Wolves the title a response to the major label push at the end of Let's Go? I'm thinking way too much about that, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the other F word. I love that doc. I watch it about once a year, especially as like a dad now and everything. I get a little misty-eyed once a year, especially at the Dwayne Peters part towards the end. I don't know about playing a full doc like that on the channel. I definitely want to make a video about it closer to like Father's Day. That was a pretty big doc, so I don't know if we can get some permission to play that on YouTube. It exists on YouTube in full, but I don't know if that's from the uploader. So I'll have to do a little bit of legwork. But that would definitely be a fun or maybe even a members only stream if we wanted to do that sort of thing.
It's all about, you know, we had conquered the system. We had been playing, I've been playing in punk bands since 1980, 81, and doing what everyone told me was wrong, you know.
I never thought we were going to have a hit record. I never thought that we'd have a platinum record. I never even thought we'd have a gold record. When the Offspring finished their Smash CD, I loved it. I thought Come Out and Play was an amazing song.
The CD, he showed there the actual CD. That was pretty iconic with Smash too. Like I remember that very distinctly. And I got Smash in like 2002 probably or something like that. Like I didn't get it in 94. I was like 7 years old. But I distinctly remember that outline of Smash being on the CD. See, that's one of those pieces of tangible media that us old heads can lament, right? The CDs themselves, the actual iconography on the CDs. Oh, Punkaramas were great. The Punkaramas were great. I discovered I talk about this in almost every video I make, but like usually if I heard about a band, because I didn't live in a place that was super connected, it was because I went to like a freaking Hastings and they had a punk rock comp and it was like, oh cool, there's Strung Out, you know, on the Fat Records one. Especially too, like Epitaph had really as a promotional tool for Epitaph, but a lot of the other comps would have so many bands even outside of the label that I just think it was the equivalent of radio for punk rock back then. Because like especially where I lived, like we didn't have K-Rock, so there was no punk rock being played on the radio. So if the way you got exposed in like a quick audition for a band was through the comps. Sing the Sorrow, Josh, which I meant to talk about in here. I'll probably do a video later in the week. 20th anniversary this Saturday. I've had a complete 180 on Sing the Sorrow. Maybe I'll talk about that later. And John. Sorry, I'm getting you guys confused with Josh and John here. Yeah, the bands they thanked in the booklets. That was huge. That was huge. Definitely. Not only that, the bands they thanked in the booklets, the comps, but the inserts. The inserts were pretty big too. I loved especially, I want to say like both Sidewind Dummy and Nitro had just great inserts in their comps. And I like the Nitro one, especially because all the bands that were on Nitro had like the coolest album covers. Like I don't even like a lot of those bands, to be honest with you. But they had the best like covers and artwork to go through that booklet. Get me all right there in the feels.
I wanted to send it to radio.
We were listening to the record and Brett was saying, yeah, this is a hit song, you know, this is the hit, you know, Come Out and Play. And we were just like, hit song, you know, what's that? Like, I mean, are you kidding us? Like, you're going to put punk rock on the radio and it's going to be a hit song? Like, come on. And Offspring was the same way. They were like, I don't know what he's talking about, radio, you know, and boom, next thing you know, it was over.
The song had already been picked up by K-Rock and was already kind of caught on fire by the time we shot a video.
It was really exciting from the very beginning. Before the record was even out, we were really excited about the record.
I remember Maximum Rock and Roll, the Bible of punk rock, calling it the punk record of the year.
I guess that's when everything, you know, really changed.
It was just...
You gotta keep them separated.
Pallets jammed in our warehouse. The phones ringing like crazy. Fax orders coming in like crazy.
All of a sudden you hear the fax machine go off and Brett and Jeff and Jay was like, orders, all excited.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have come out and play Ruined just from like going to sporting events and stuff and it just being over and over again by the band? Like, you know, like the marching band. I don't know why the arrangement to that song apparently fits so well with like brass instruments, but good God, bands play that all the time at sporting events.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, you know, sitting with Brett and thinking, man, maybe this thing might sell. This might actually sell 500,000.
9 million worldwide, I think is what it's at.
The kind of numbers that we ended up selling on those few records in '94 was shocking to me.
I believe it is still the biggest selling independent record of all time.
You know,
And what's awesome about that that'll never be broken because of the way that the parameters are nowadays and the way that stuff is sold. And because I'm pretty sure that held up, because by the time even this DVD was produced, you're in the early 2000s. Record sales are already starting to dip. There's never going to be another album on an independent label as big as Smash. Like, that's it. Epitaph has that. Like, they've got that. I've never seen the Offspring live. Are they on the When We Were Young this year? Because if they are, that'll be the first time I've ever seen Offspring. Don't think Punk Rock Bowling's going to happen for me. But When We Were Young is. So if anyone's in Vegas that weekend, let's do a meetup or something. Just putting that out there.
People, all of a sudden, everybody knew what Epitaph was. And you talk to anybody and tell them you work at Epitaph, and they know what you're talking about.
I just remember Brett was just overwhelmed. He was like getting offers by every major label.
Yeah, I mean, I was very overwhelmed back then. Really, felt like my head was spinning.
You just walk out from the office at the old location, sit down in a chair in the middle of the room, and with a dazed look in his face. "What's up, Brett?" "Oh, I've just had 3 new offers for millions."
We were given offers from all the major labels to joint venture with them or partner up with them, and so it would be as a help to us, because we might not have the infrastructure to pull it off, or we might not have the financial resources, or we might just not have the know-how. And hey, we'll come in and we'll give you X million dollars and let us be your partner, okay?
He made some serious business decisions that were very scary at the moment. They could have been pass or fail.
Whether I was being smart or being arrogant or being crazy, I don't know. But I decided not to do any of those deals and just to stay independent and try to do it myself.
And they were all calling us. They couldn't say that we couldn't do it. They wanted to buy him out. He said no. But the problem is, to make those records, it costs money. What if we made the records and they didn't sell? It became a very big concern for Brett. He had to basically put his ass on the line.
Brett risked all his money to push Rancid and the Offspring.
I mean, Brett mortgaged.
Also, and it's not mentioned here, Brett has some serious substance abuse issues right around this time, and I think honestly brought on by this.
His house to be able to make CDs.
And he took a big chance. He could have gone broke. If this record wouldn't have done anything, if it was stopped, we would have been screwed. The Epitaph wouldn't be here today, and Brett would have been broke.
And even on just a very practical, physical level, we didn't have anywhere to put all the records. We had Offspring and Rancid records stacked to the ceiling.
You walk between mountains and mountains of pallets of CDs from the front of the old warehouse to the very back, lined up. Just hundreds of thousands of CDs showed up.
You couldn't walk. You walk into the office in the warehouse.
So I know that this is label focused. Interesting, though, that there's been no mention, and I don't think there's going to be, about what actually happened between Brett and the bands in this time period. Because you've got the Showdown with Rancid, where, they were for all intents and purposes signed away. And you have the secret, backdoor meeting that went down. And we'll never know what the terms were that were discussed. All we know is that it was likely a very, very sweetheart deal. So we have that. We also have the Offspring electing to stay for the next, is it 2 records? That Ignition, right? That came out then. Again, not the biggest Offspring fan, as you could tell by my one video that everyone didn't like that I made about the Offspring. With that said, it's there was a lot of bad feelings with Epitaph and the Offspring at the time. I think a lot of good feelings with Rancid. Also, something that's mentioned in Smash, I want to say, is the little bit of a fracturing of relationship with NOFX and Epitaph. Not really Brett and Mike, I'm not so sure, but the fracturing of the relationship, which I think had to do a little bit with Fat. And now Mike always maintained, he was not looking to compete with Epitaph. He was simply looking to put out bands that he saw, bands that he took out on the road with him. But there was a little bit of tension, I think, there as well. I think it's mostly been smoothed over, but there was tension.
And then the whole driveway was just jammed with pallets.
Wait, well, what was the album? And I could just look this up. There's an album after Smash that's on Epitaph, right? Like, what is? I just can't think of it. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but yeah, I'm almost positive there's a post Smash album.
And then they would go out the door and around the corner sometimes. I mean, so we had to have someone outside all the time because it was such a shitty neighborhood. And then
So I might be completely wrong then, John. Let me just look it up instead of speculating, but you might be right. It was, let's see here. What about this? Is great show I'm putting on here. There, I'm just looking at my phone. Really, 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 really amazing. Oh yeah, that one was on Columbia. Okay, I had that timeline wrong in my head. Thanks for pointing that out. I had that completely wrong. There you go, Josh. That makes sense. Thanks guys for the research. In all seriousness, like, thank you, because I was a little confused. But yeah, there was a lot of bad feelings at the time, and I don't think they ever really reconciled. That's pretty sad. There's a lot of bands like that. I know we like to romanticize the indie label and the indie band before they go to a major, but it tends to end bad. I feel like right at the very end, like they usually can reconcile, but yeah.
Then we had to rent some more warehouses downtown, and the records were filled to the ceiling in those places. And then the thing started selling so many that.
Yeah, Josh, it's funny because like in my mind, the Osprey narrative goes Smash to Americana. It's not fair, but it's just kind of how it goes in my brain.
So fast that we couldn't even put them in the warehouse. We started just shipping truckloads of them from the pressing plant right to the record stores.
It was mind-boggling, and we did it. And when most of that shit was going down, we weren't in this building. We were in this little tiny garage over on Santa Monica Boulevard.
Kind of a gnarly crime-ridden area. A lot of transvestites and people with guns.
It was pretty cheap because it was just like a warehouse, kind of like a big garage.
This is the old Epitaph on Santa Monica Boulevard, and it's a studio rental place now. We built these walls here. This was just an empty space when we first moved in here. This was Brett's office back in the day. And after a while, we moved the accountant into there, and then Brett's desk moved out here. So Brett's desk was here. I've got actually a picture of me and Brett standing right about here. And this whole area was jammed with CDs. I mean, we had a little mailing table here with a little meter and everything, and then everything else was just jammed with CDs. All the way back here. That back wall wasn't there. It was about twice as long. And here, look, there's a little remnant here left. A clawhammer sticker, there's an Epitaph sticker over there. It's just like a little bookshelf right there, and that's where we kept all our promos. That was it.
Things started getting taken a little more seriously. You know, they had a forklift back there, and, you know, stuff was getting stacked up on pallets now, and it was like, wow, what's going on here?
I remember the day the forklift blew up under me. I thought somebody had taken a shot at me because there was smoke and a big loud bang. The battery, like one of the cells, just exploded right underneath my ass as I was driving on Santa Monica Boulevard. In the middle of rush hour, we'd be like pulling out this big, extremely busy street. Cars were just jamming up traffic forever, loading up all the NOFX and Pennywise and Offspring records on these big bobtail trucks, and loading up long lines of pallets of like stacked them on top of each other out on Santa Monica Boulevard, and sitting on top and drinking 40 ounces of beer waiting for the trucks to show up. That was one of my fine memories.
That sounds fun. Drunk forklift driving, though. Wouldn't say I haven't done it, but don't recommend it.
What a day. Yeah, those are good times.
Working the warehouse back then, shipped out the first couple million, was it? Pretty much first million out of that place.
I mean, he personally shipped most of those records himself. And Rhonda was doing the production thing by herself. It was always by herself. I was here till 11 o'clock every night. We didn't even have a radio person. I was quarterbacking the radio thing until about halfway through the project, and we started hiring radio people. I mean, we were a small little company, and all this stuff was happening.
A lot of people thought we were a huge company at that time, too, because the Offspring was so big and was doing so well. People were kind of surprised when they found out we had like 10 employees at that point.
You know, we all quit our jobs. We're in a band, you know, we're doing what we love for a living, and waking up in the morning and not having to go punch a time clock, you know. It was pretty much
the cool
pretty
photo.
amazing.
We witnessed something that no one can take away from us, you know. Just, it was special, you know, to be a part of that. It was really cool.
The explosion of these punk records in '94, and the fact that Epitaph remained indie, just had a nice positive effect on the independent music scene in all its different aspects. You know, from the mom and pop store to the mom and pop indie distributor to the fanzine to the, you know, it pumped vitality. It pumped vibrancy into the whole scene, and it was really alive. And it was really flying high there for all the mid-'90s, you know. And it was just a nice feeling. It was a nice feeling to play a part and to contribute to that.
Brett wasn't feeling so great in the mid-'90s, though. That's for sure.
And, you know, you see that being followed up with Punk and Drublic by NOFX. You know, arguably one of the finest records ever of the genre. I feel like, you know, they were inspired by seeing that happen. About Time by Pennywise, Out Come the Wolves by Rancid. These are like
which, according to this little documentary, came out in '94 and then came out again in '94. Cool.
Core must-have records that all came out in the wake of this excitement and the possibility of what could happen.
It happened for the Offspring, then it happened, you know, and it happened for Green Day, then it happened for Rancid. Then my own group, Bad Religion, even had a gold record.
So many people told us we couldn't do it. We decided to give them all a thank you.
Brett took out an ad in, was it Billboard?
Full-page ad for Billboard magazine with all of us flipping off the camera.
Giving the finger. It was a full-page ad, and it said, "To whom it may concern," you know?
And it wasn't just labels, it was just everybody. You know, everybody saying, you're not going to be able to do this.
For all you people that thought we couldn't do it, that's pretty fucking rad.
And it's also, even before this happened, all those years of people telling us, you know, you're an independent label, you're only going to be able to do this much. And that's just the way it is.
Brad's belief in the scene and punk rock and, you know, his label, you know, he proved everybody wrong.
You know, Brett's just he's such an amazing boss. He's such a genuine, honest guy that I knew early on that I was going to make a career out of Epitaph. Not just, you know, record industry aside, I just, you know, I wanted to work for Brett, and so here I am.
I was afraid of Brett for the first couple months, just because I hadn't really talked to him that much, and I was awed by Brett. I thought he was brilliant.
The fact that he believed in it, you know, and believed in the music and believed in what he was doing, and just like the guy's drive was just incredible. He had so much energy, it would just pour out all the other employees, the bands. He would get them so hyped up that it was like, you know, you had no choice but to, you know, make it happen.
He became more of a man of the world, you know, the bigger it got, he needed to be, you know, get out there and represent. But he's still Brett, you know, go to his house and hang out, and he's goofy and he's incredibly funny.
He's the smartest guy I know. I mean, he is brilliant. And
yeah, that's definitely true, John. And that's one of the things that I want to kind of explore when we explore the Lookout book, because I think there's a bit of a contrast there. And I know Livermore has said it quite often that, like, why couldn't Green Day have just stuck it out with us? Now Livermore's always kind of framed it more, I think, in like, we could have had our own Smash. We could have had Smash and gone from there. Or, you know, eventually they could have been what Rancid was. You know, these bands that aren't major label bands, but have a fair amount of capital coming through. I want to get into the nuance later about why that didn't happen or why that was or wasn't possible. But yeah, these bands that stayed the course, it worked out for them. I mean, there was some major signings for a few of them, obviously, like Rancid had the Warner Brothers distribution deal. I wouldn't say Pennywise ever signed to a major. I think in 2008, if you signed to a major, that's not really the same thing. I mean, they signed to MySpace. NoFX obviously stayed independent, but didn't stay with Epitaph. Bouncing Souls, did their thing. And like you said, they're still around, still getting tours, presumably still making a living from punk rock, although a lot of them probably have like some day jobs these days, but it kind of is what it is.
I would never take him or this company for granted just because there's pretty much nothing else I'd rather be doing.
Very proud of my track record. Signed a lot of great bands. It doesn't feel like I've done that much. Yes, I've been able to recognize good bands, but I think, a big part of it was after signing the first few bands that were great, that was attractive to other bands. So the other bands wanted to be associated with them, and they came to me, and so I can't take too much credit for it. I'm grateful, I'm lucky, but the real truth is that's just all bullshit, false humility. I'm
Tell
the
him,
greatest.
Brett. You are.
I found those bands and I made them what they are.
Mr. Brett. No, don't laugh. Just lead into it, Brett.
And they would be nothing without me.
Cut
In
your
fact, they're not
promo.
even real bands. I wrote all their songs for them. And I sing. Fat Mike never sang a note in his life. That's me lip syncing behind the curtain.
We have an album. It says on the plaque, this is congratulating NoFX for selling way the fuck under 500,000 records. He gives a half.
I love that story's gone around for a while. I love the half gold record. Oh, it's such an iconic album too. Probably the best album of that bunch. No, Out Come the Wolves is, but besides that.
Half gold record, chopped in half. That's special.
Nine years later.
This is what Epitaph looks like today. We've got our headquarters, our worldwide headquarters here in Silver Lake. We have about 35 people here. We have a small warehouse. It's about 5 minutes away. One guy mans the whole warehouse. Our European headquarters is in Amsterdam. And we have maybe about 20, 25 people there. They act as a central hub in Europe, and they also have a warehouse out of which they ship to each country in Europe. In Australia, we have one guy who works for us, represents us over there. We have one really talented woman who works for us in Canada. We have a licensing deal in Japan. We have a blues label called Fat Possum, and they're based in Oxford, Mississippi.
Yeah, Motion City. So if you look at the stats of like Epitaph in like 02 and 03, Motion City was like one of the biggest bands that they were putting out at the time. Yeah, I never really got into them though. Like I don't completely discount that type of music. I just didn't get into them specifically.
We're partners with them, and we do a lot of work for them out of here and out of our European office. We have a new label called Anti, and that's for all the stuff that we put out that we don't consider to be punk rock, but so that it doesn't fit in the Epitaph label. Then we have a partnership with a Swedish punk label called Burning Heart, and in the U.S. we represent them, and in Europe we help them out with various things like distribution and so forth. We have, I guess, what you could call a little family of labels. We're not just one label anymore. And there's a little more diversity. Oh, and last but not least, Hellcat Records. How could I forget that? And that's my partnership with Tim Armstrong of Rancid, one of my oldest friends in the music business. And we see eye to eye on a lot of things, including music.
The line between Hellcat and Epitaph, I think, is always kind of interesting because you start to wonder, like, well, is that an Epitaph band or is that a Hellcat band? It was like, who put that out? And I guess technically the cash all kind of comes from the same place. Yeah, Melancholin's great. They just always get forgotten about. Like, I personally forget about them a lot, but there's not a day that goes by, I swear, if I'm shuffling a playlist on this little thing right here and it does not have No Cigar on there. Bombshell rocks. I don't think I've ever dove in there. I need to take notes from these streams. A lot of good suggestions. They're doing the fade up there for the Give Them the Boot comps. Those are another great comps that I used to love. All of the Rancid extended universe. Dave. It's been a minute. Good to see you still exist, Dave. Good to see you're well. Hang on for about another 7 minutes, then we'll do our bracket fight.
And that's the whole burrito.
I don't think there's another label out there like this label.
I've told almost everybody who works at Epitaph, I said, you know, and it's a trick question. I'll say, do you know who your boss is? And they'll say, yeah, you're the boss. No, the bands are the boss. You don't work for me, you work for them. And if they're not here, you don't.
I haven't been posting a lot, Dave. Actually, I haven't live streamed since the last time we talked, so that's why we haven't heard from each other. Change that. I was actually gonna not stream this week. I was like, I got stuff going. No, got to get back on that saddle. Took the little holiday break that kind of turned into an extra week, but we should have some consistency on Tuesdays now. It's like today's kind of a lazy show too, because it's like our soft relaunch.
You don't have a job. I could be gone tomorrow. Chances are you still have a job around here. While the bands walk out the door, what do you think you're doing for a living?
Most record labels suck. They have no interest in the bands. They have interest in making money. And I think that's why Epitaph's been successful for so long. Care about the bands.
You know, because record companies don't make records. You know, bands make records. A record company needs an extra ingredient to make records. They need an artist to write the music and go make the record. Knowing that, and then taking the simple
1208. There's one I haven't seen in a while. Haven't thought about in a while.
Principle of, you know what, we work for the band. They hire us to help them sell some records. It keeps it all very clear, keeps it all in perspective, and by and large, the vast majority of our bands are, you know, pretty happy.
We stay with Epitaph for, you know, they're a good label and they've always treated us fairly, and loyalty, you know. No one has any loyalty anymore. That's what it's about.
Everyone that worked here is into punk rock. It's not like they just went to get a job.
And they hire very, very sharp, keen-minded, and creative people here, like Andy Calkin.
I think we're one of the few labels that really is tied into the music culturally. And I also think that, you know, because of Brett, you know, because he was in Bad Religion, you know, we have a label that's growing out of a scene that pretty much grew out of Bad Religion. And I also think we have the very best bands in that scene. And I think that, you know, I'm very proud of this. I think we just, you know, I think that we are very much a part of that world.
You know, I mean, I know a lot of the, you know, the punk police, as I call them, think that Epitaph is a major and we're big nowadays.
Shh, are the punk police close by?
But the truth is that compared to a major label, compared to someone who makes breakfast cereal, you know, I'm a pipsqueak.
I love the fact that we're putting out great records.
Dave, that's a hell of a turn there. So you got Tsunami Bomb mixed up with Bombshell Rocks and U.S. Bombs. Okay, you're all over the place there. Tsunami Bomb, by the way, another great band that recently I've been diving back into. Follow Agent M on Instagram. She's like a chef now.
I love the fact.
What is that? O2? Well, it's got to be O2 Punkorama, right? That blue one. Yep, that's the one I want to say that had the. It wasn't the Rancid NOFX split, but they each did each other's song on it. Minutemen are fine. Very old school, right? I always view the Minutemen though as kind of having more like gimmicky songs that I'm not completely into. It's funny, the 1208. I had a 1208 sticker on my first vehicle. It came with like one of these comps, and I just remember, and I wasn't like super. I probably hadn't even heard them at the time, but I was like, I knew that they were an Epitaph band, and I just put them on there.
that we're tied into a culture that's passionate.
We survive because of devotion and that, strive to just prove a point.
I don't know, being independent in itself
Hey,
is
Mike.
meaningless. It's just having great bands. It's just having great music.
Why would I go anywhere else? Why would I, just wouldn't.
Death by Stereo was good. Again, not really my cup of tea. I felt like they're a little bit of a hardcore band mixed in with these more melodic skate punk bands, but I've recently dove into them a little bit more, and their album, the big one that they had, I can see the cover in there right now, but I can't name it. That one's also celebrating like a 20-year anniversary this year. Yeah, they did do those splits. I remember specifically the Bouncing Souls Anti-Flag split was the one I remember seeing a lot. But the Rancid one, loved that one. I still love that. I've made a few videos, a few shorts, and some people get mad because they say, "Oh, well, only the original artist should be credited." Like, who did it better? I think the scene they came out of, 1, 2, 3, 5, has something to do with it. I've always got the vibe though about the Minutemen, that they're more in like, I don't know, like the punk bands that are also really into Devo, and not necessarily that they sounded like Devo, but I think they're kind of in that vein. They don't sound like a new wave band, but they're clearly like in and around that scene. Okay. You guys have been patient. You've waited long enough. I have about just enough time to do this. Let's get to the big attraction here. Let's get to our bracket fight. This is going to be fun, I hope. Or it could be a disaster. If it's a disaster, I won't do it again. Before we do that, we're going to have to switch scenes here. Let's see. Do. Did it do it? There we go. Right. I want that. All right. So, it is, of course, the month of March, which means it is the month where people pretend to know something about like college basketball, and you fill out brackets, and you make your best guess, and you hopefully win a lot of money. But what I thought is let's transition this to punk rock. Let's compare frontmen from a certain era. Now, this first time we're ever going to do this, if we end up doing it a couple of times, it's going to be very self-selected of just kind of the bands I tend to talk about on this channel. So the stuff I feel like our audience, me, you, and everyone else, has a general grammar with. There's really nothing obscure. It's a lot of the same bands I talk about. So it's not really genre specific, other than that, like, these guys each had a bit of a moment, I would say, like between 94 to about 2005, and some beyond, some before, but that's how I shook it out. And I should note, I only did 8 because I didn't want to be doing this all day. Now, in the future, we can expand this out. We can do hardcore singers. We could do early era. We could do pioneers. We could do strictly pop punkers. We could go all over the place in this. And I didn't want to necessarily make like seeds because I thought that might be kind of weird. But I just made some matchups that I thought would be like a higher seed versus a lower seed. Because initially I had this set up into categories, but then I changed it. Let me unveil our contestants here, and let me show you guys the bracket before we get into it. And then I'll also unveil the criteria that we're going to use here. So as you can hopefully see, yes, you can. Right. So here is the bracket. In the upper left-hand corner. Okay, on the upper left-hand corner, we have a very, I would say, poppy matchup between Matt Skiba of Alkaline Trio and Joey Cape of Lagwagon. In our bottom left region, we have a heavyweight fight here. This is your big matchup to start things out. Davey Havoc versus Greg Graffin. I think I could do this video and put this out to votes, and there'd be votes on each side of that one. That's going to be a tough one. We also have in our upper right hand corner Jim Lindbergh, Pennywise, the punk rock dad, taking on Tim Armstrong of Rancid. And in our bottom right corner, we have the late great Tony Sly of No Use for a Name and Fat Mike of NOFX. We kind of call that the Fat Records region. So we're going to have a little fight here, have a little bit of fun. It gives us a little bit of an excuse to discuss some of these guys. But you guys are here. You're active in the chat. I want you guys to participate in this. In fact, I think I can make polls. I know I can make polls. So your guys' votes will factor into this as well. Now, the three criteria that I'm going to use are really, really simple. Perceived songwriting. Ability. What I mean by ability is not necessarily virtuosity, but how well what they do translates to their music. So, like Fat Mike, not a great singer, like not a conventionally good singer. His voice, though, definitely fits his songs, right? His bass playing is up here. So songwriting and my vague notion of musicianship. And the third one will just be charisma, personality. Now, that's a little bit subjective, and all of this is subjective. But the way I'm doing it is like, if they wrote a book, if they had a movie, would I want to read it? Would I want to be interested in it? So those are the three criteria that I am going to use. But I want you to use your own criteria. I will. Let me see if I can make a poll right quick right here. So our first round matchup will be, of course, no, Skiba, you're not supposed to advance. There we go. Okay. Joey Cape versus Matt Skiba. Let me see if I can put this up as a poll. And not just bog down the stream here. Interesting, Dave. Interesting. Okay. Place your votes here. You guys have already put some votes in the chat. So you guys, let's see. So far in the chat, we've got nice logic there, Dave. Nice logic. All right. So let me give you my my rating there. So as far as ability, I think I would go with Cape on this one. Not that Skiba is bad. I just don't find that is necessarily his strength. So I would go. I would definitely go Joey Cape on there. I think Joey Cape is, a pretty good guitarist, even though he doesn't really play guitar in Lagwagon, and he's a really good singer. Like just a really good singer that could translate to multiple genres. So could Skiba, but I think it's more narrow of the genres he would translate to. Although that's not really what we're asking here. Now, beyond that, as far as songwriting, I'd go with Skiba on songwriting. I know you guys are probably disagreeing with me on that one. I would definitely go with Skiba. I'm more interested in Skiba's songs. I know you said about the self important side there, and I think that definitely holds. But I just think the songwriting is better, my opinion. But that is what it is. As far as interest and charisma, I think this one, and that's why I wanted this to be a first round matchup. It's different. So I don't know that like someone like me, I'm not necessarily super interested in the life of Joey Cape. He writes great songs that tell really good stories, and they tend to be like biographical. So he does have that, but I would say that I am much more interested in reading a book or watching a documentary on Skiba. But again, that's just me. Oh, you're more of a Dan guy than a Matt. Oh, so Skiba being in Vegas 182, that takes him out of there. Have you guys seen the memes of now that Travis Barker is injured that he's learning how to play drums so he can step in? Okay, and the poll was definitely in favor of Joey Cape. So, I am a man of the people. I do not agree with you guys. But this is a tournament, so styles make fights. Matchups make fights. And in this case, our community has spoken. And you guys have said that Joey Cape, the Caper, will be moving on. Okay. All right. Davey Havoc versus the Doctor in Greg Graffin. Feels like there was a similar theme on both of these. In that it was like the dark brooding guy versus the more down-to-earth guy. Let me put it on the poll. So, let's see here. Greg over the vampire. Oh, that's a good one. Come on, YouTube. Let me make a poll. What is the problem, YouTube? Okay. There we go. The poll finally. So you guys are 75-25. Greg all day. Havoc is chaotic and fun to watch, but Greg sings to the masses and preaches to us all. Yes, he does. Absolutely. All right, screw the polls. I'm just gonna take your guys' feedback here. You guys are giving me good enough feedback. I'm just gonna take your feedback. All right. So let's make the case for both, and let's differentiate them. So, musicianship. I think that Davey Havoc will tell you that he's not a great musician. What he does is not great. Like, there's plenty of interviews with Davey over the years where he's noted, like, he's actually surprised how into him people are, because he's got a distinct voice, and I think his voice really fits their songs. And like, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it's there. But it's tough. It can be tough. And I don't know that I can listen to Davey all day, every day, in the same way I can listen to Graffin. I generally do listen to Bad Religion probably like once or twice a day. There's plenty of times where AFI comes up on the playlist, and I love AFI. I love AFI. I want to make that clear. However, there are times though when I don't feel like listening to them, and it's, to be completely honest, it's like times that I don't want to hear Davey's voice. So I think his voice at times, while an asset to the band, can detract from some of their songs. Let's get to your comments here. Both are good, but I have to go with Havoc based on triple brilliance of Black Sails, Art of Drowning, and Sing the Sorrow. Their incredible live performance during that. Yeah, no argument there. No argument there for sure. And again, in all these are all like great artists. So we're picking nits here. Greg, old business and just himself out there. Very good vocally in comparison to the album. Mm-hmm. Davey Havoc has a couple of songs compared to Bad Religion's 3 or 4 good albums. I mean, I think the hardcore albums, the skate punk albums are really good from AFI. But, I mean, Greg kind of created the skate punk. And then I think those late 90s albums are amazing. But so are the early 90s Bad Religion albums. Dave is much more dapper, for sure. Dave, if anything Graffin doesn't have, it's dapperness. Like, if that was a category, we definitely go with AFI. So musicianship, also like from a strict, I know I didn't say this as a criteria, from a strict, just like what they're good at doing. Greg is like a flawless singer. Like Greg is kind of classically trained as a singer, and it really shows. He's not even really a punk rock singer if you think about it. He sings a different style. He sings almost like a classic rock singer in a punk rock band. Okay, songwriting. To me, AFI is just a little more niche. Like, it's not necessarily better. And I think if you want to take some points away on the songwriting front from Graffin, there's a few things. One, I don't think Graffin was nowhere near as strong of a songwriter without Brett as he was with Brett, which Brett's one of the great songwriters of all time. But I think the symbiotic relationship with Brett really helped. Plus, I think with Davey, it's a lot of collaboration too, as is with Bad Religion, but I would give him the edge there. Personality, I would read a Davey Havoc book, but I have read several Greg Graffin books. So, gonna go with the doctor here. Early knockout there. Tough matchup. Styles make fights, as I said. So we're setting up for a pretty good. Well, no, I want to get the other side. I want to get the other side of the bracket. So now, Greg Graffin's vocabulary is something else. Greg Graffin's vocabulary will drive you so nuts too, because it's like, come on, man. Like, we don't need a thesaurus. A lot of us are educated, and you know, no, I don't want to do that one. All right. So, upper right-hand corner, Jim Lindberg from Pennywise versus Tim Armstrong from Rancid. I'm sure there's going to be lots of thoughts and debates here. Two stalwarts, for sure. When it comes to songwriting, though, I would say this is a huge mismatch. Pennywise has great songs. But did they make a lot of diverse music? More so than their critics claim. But if you've heard one Pennywise, you've kind of heard them all. And I'd say this, as far as songwriting goes. The album that they did, Pennywise, that is, without Jim, still pretty good. Still pretty good. I don't want to diminish him. Still pretty good. The musicianship of it all. I would actually give that to Jim in this one. Tim has... Yeah, they do have a huge library. Tim has a distinct voice. A voice fits Rancid songs really well. But it's got some problems. And I think we can admit that. I don't know if anyone else could sing those Rancid songs great. I think other people maybe could even sing Pennywise songs great. I think Greg Graffin would be a great lead singer on Pennywise. I think he's just a little bit better. What he contributes musically, as far as the actual technical musical part, not the songwriting, musically, I think he's just a hair above Tim. And Tim's a fine guitar player, but when you watch him live, he just gets that pick and does his thing. But as you said, John, great stage presence. Jim's not a bad stage performer either, but he's a front man. He's got to concentrate on some different things. He doesn't have to share the duty in the same way that Tim does, or he doesn't get the luxury of sharing the vocal duties. And sometimes you see Rancid, you got 3 guys singing songs. Personality. This is an odd one as far as personality and charisma. Both very charismatic guys. So here's the thing. They're sort of inverses of each other as far as public personas. Not just because, like, Jim is basically branded himself as the suburban punk rock dad. Tim's the mysterious, like almost mythical king of punk rock. Yeah, definitely, John. There is that I mentioned. I find myself being much more relatable to Jim, especially at this point in my life. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Tim. Now I kind of want to be Jim. I find my life is much more similar to his than probably anyone else. Maybe next to Joey on this list. Great documentary we mentioned earlier, The F Word. Great documentary. That's basically his doc. I am still intrigued by Tim. All these years later, I am intrigued by Tim. Tim, being such a closed book, is such an underrated part of the success of him and that band. The fact that they have kept mystique, they have kept things guarded. Infamously, do not do interviews. If you score an interview with Rancid proper, good for you, because that's very difficult. Now, Lars does a lot of stuff. Lars does podcasts. He does interviews. If you're watching, Lars, come on the show. I'd love to talk to you. That mystery keeps us interested in Tim. Keeps him mysterious. His songwriting, too, has that vibe to it. You have an intrigue there. It might be a little bit of a put on as this sort of like tortured poet. But I want to know more. I love you, Jim. Probably rather hang out with you. Like, I'd rather you maybe live next door to me. But Tim gets the nod here. It was a mismatch, but I think it was a nuanced mismatch. Let me see if my big one will come out, because this will be a fun one. Oh, stupid bracket fights. All right. Bottom right-hand corner. Fat Mike of NOFX. Tony Sly of No Use for Any. I think everyone knows how I feel about both of these figures. I have a lot of affection for the music of both. Obviously, Fat Mike is the bigger personality of the two. We probably also wouldn't really know Lagwagon if it wasn't for Fat Mike. So that has to play into it. It's hey ya. That's funny. I don't know why I had a funny thinking of Greg holding the mic for me. Thanks, Doc. All right. From these two. Now, I am going to break my own rule on the criteria here, probably. I would say Tony Sly, better songwriter, better musician than Fat Mike. I don't think that's a controversial statement. You may disagree. I don't think it's controversial. I think he wrote better songs. I think he was a better guitar player, and he's got a better voice. And it fit his songs just as well. Yeah, John, that you're kind of taking the yeah, and definitely I would let Tony watch my kids. If this is the punk rock dads ranking, I think again Joey Cape, Dr. Graffin, Tony and Jim win it. However, intrigue again, and to be fair, like I want to know more about Tony, and I'm glad that people like Fat Mike are still around to let us know more about Tony. I have sentimentality towards Tony, but cult of personality, Fat Mike's the guy. Fat Mike, and we'll talk about this probably next week because we're on the anniversary of the Iraq War, which is also kind of coincides with the rise of punk voter. And that's the era where Fat Mike really becomes the Fat Mike personality. And that personality overrides the other two. So I could have not put Tony on this list. Originally, I was going to have Tony versus Joey, which I think is probably much more interesting. But I wanted at least one of them to have a chance of advancing. So that's why I did that here. No, yeah, I see what you're saying there. I see what you're saying as far as guitar to bass. No, I definitely think you're right. Although, I think Fat Mike will admit, and a lot of people admit, they learned a lot of what they know from Tony. But Fat Mike advances to the second round. The final four here. Brackets are busted. People are mad. Here we go. We have ourselves a heck of a final four. A little bit of a mismatch, though, on one end. Let's go to the left side because I think the primetime matchup is on the right side. Thanks for holding that mic, Doctor. Joey Cape versus Greg Graffin. Why don't you guys sound off on this while I take a sip of my coffee? I kind of know which way this is going to go, but I want to hear your guys' explanations and reasons. The good doctor. Okay. I know, John, you said he can't argue, but care to try? Because I'm interested in why you take the caper over the doc. You're probably right, Josh. That's why this is a little unfair. You're probably right because I think their profiles are not super distinct. I think musicianship and they're pretty awash. I think it's songwriting. They touch on different subject matter. Obviously, Joey is much more interpersonal, right? And Graffin is philosophical, right? Bigger picture. Does have personal songs as well. And as well, Joey's got political songs. Got to make a decision here. Yeah, good point. Good point. Joey's got the comedic side. Graffin's got it too. But part of it stems from the fact, like when he cracks a joke, it's funny because it's like your math teacher telling a joke. And he does have the humor, but the vibe is like you said. Like I said in my recent video about Graffin, it's ironically you can say it's professorship. It's also kind of a church kind of situation where everyone else in the congregation, he's the preacher. But Dave, here's the thing. Maybe we're too dumb. Maybe we don't get it. Maybe we don't get the jokes. I don't know, guys. So Josh has made some great pleas for the caper here. But I think it's time for the caper to have a smoke. I think he's falling apart. I think the doctor has to take over. Bit of an executive decision here. Not super democratic. He's going to the title game. Now, the matchup of this tournament. Tim Armstrong versus Fat Mike. It's a tough one. No. Why does it keep doing that? No. Okay. Very, very different. Although, like, if you're a fan of one, you're probably a fan of the other. But completely different in so many ways. Both obviously key drivers in their bands. Both had huge runs. Huge runs in the 90s and the 2000s. Both are extremely important as far as bringing other bands along. Although I think Fat Mike has that wand there. Both prolific songwriters. Extremely prolific songwriters. That's where I think the rub has got to be. And they have the inversion of each other, similar to the Lindbergh Tim matchup, in that one guy's literally an open book. The other guy is the mystery. Tim, because he never told us who to vote for. I mean, Rancid has plenty of political songs, but I get what you're saying. That is a very key point. Good call, Dave. Good call. Yeah, if you just doing NOFX, Rancid, and general vibes, because I think their solo stuff, if you compare the solo stuff of these two, I'd probably give Tim a slight edge there. Now, if you compare music outside of their main bands, Tim gets a massive edge there because he's also got the Operation Ivy thing. Now, Me First is fine, but it's an ensemble that, Fatty. I almost called him Fats Mike. That Fat Mike isn't always a part of. They both have the charisma. They express it in different ways. Tim is viewed as this intellectual figure. Fat Mike is literally viewed as a clown, but I mean that in like that's his role. He's sort of the leader of the circus. I'm gonna take Tim here. I don't feel great about it. I think the higher end of Tim's music is a little bit better. I think the volume of Fat Mike's music might be just a little bit more. Like, I want to say just offhand, NOFX has released more music and it's been fairly consistent. So I would definitely Fat Mike there. However, sorry about this. 1 second. So hold on, guys. I lost the chat. There it is. I like your strategic planning there. I think the difference is I want to say Fat Mike maybe is a better musician. I do think the arranging that NOFX does, excuse me, that Rancid does, might be better. I think the influence he's got on that music, and they both play with great musicians too. You get Matt Freeman, Lars Fredriksson, both very good. Heffa, Melvin, and especially Smelly take you to the next level. But I think we got to go with Tim here. I think Tim's the answer as far as these things go. That's a tough one though. I think I could do this again and make the argument easily for Mike there. Okay. Big championship bout here. Tim Armstrong versus Greg Graffin. Now, it feels like this should be like Brett Gurwitz versus Tim Armstrong, just like based on what we watched, and we know the special connection there. Reading through Graffin's book recently for the video we did, I did note kind of how condescending Graffin kind of comes across to all these guys, and I think I don't think he means it in a mean spirited way. He tries to differentiate himself. You know, he makes so many references to Spirit of '77. It's sort of derisive way that that Tim was trying to bring back. I I think the doctor gets the vote here as far as musicianship. For sure. Charisma. Graffin is probably a more interesting figure, like, to the world than Armstrong is. Interesting, John. You think Tim's a better musician, John? I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you, but it's also limited too because yes, Graffin does play guitar in his solo acts and stuff, but he's only the singer. But I think John has a really interesting break it down here. He says, onstage persona goes to Tim. Agreed, although Greg is strong in both. Songwriting is Greg, so you're leaning Greg's songwriting. Musicianship, probably Greg. So John is definitely casting a vote. Let me put this up on an actual poll, and we'll determine it from there. Because I'm at my vote would be for Tim. I think Tim edges it out just slightly. And really, to me, it comes down to the songwriting. Not that Graffin is bad at songwriting whatsoever. I just think if I were ranking songwriters in punk rock, which again, very, very subjective, I would I'd put Tim up there. That's a good point between Op Ivy, Transplants, and Tim Timebomb. Also, The Poet's Life. You're saying that the better musician. That's fair. That's fair. And I say musician, like I'm praising the songwriting. A lot of that songwriting is the arranging and producing. That's the other thing. Tim, the prolific producer that he is as well, all the other bands he works with, not really criteria here, but I think it deserves to be to be relevant. So I am going to give you guys the vote. Whatever the vote is after like a minute and a half will be the winner. Sorry, guys. I have no idea what happened there. That was weird. There you guys. Vote on the poll. That raspy, yeah, underrated too. Like I said, there is issues with his voice. I think now, especially on those last two albums, but that's a good point, John. Tim's voice is a unique tool that Rancid has. Tim definitely has the record for most songs about buses. He writes songs about buses, as he said in that one DVD, because he rides buses and never got a driver's license. Right now, our guy Timmy's running away with the poll. A little bit of Dr. Graffin action. The register thing's interesting. I can't think of the guy's channel, but there's a bass player on YouTube that does breakdowns of I want to say it's like bass habits or so. It's a pretty good series. He's got one on Fat Mike. He's got one on Mike Dirnt of Green Day. He's got one on The Clash. Got one on Dee Dee Ramone. There's a bunch of metal guys. He also has one on Matt Freeman. And he really makes the argument that part of what makes Matt Freeman so special is that Matt Freeman has to carry so much of the range of Rancid because the guitars and the vocals kind of stick to that one zone. All right, the people have spoken. The people have spoken. The winner of the 2023 completely subjective and self-selected by me argument of who the greatest frontman in this era of punk is Tim Armstrong. That is your champion. Congratulations, Tim. I'm sure you're very honored to win. I know this is probably as big as anything you've done in your career. My hat's off to you, sir. Freeman and Lars do more for Tim than Bad Religion does for Greg. I don't know about that. I don't know. There's some badass musicians in Bad Religion. I mean, I talked about the 3 guitarists that they have, the songwriting. Yeah, the classics edition I've already thought of. I'm just not sure where to, because I was thinking about doing a 70s version to put in like the Ramones and the Damned and the Clash and the Pistols guys. I might just do that on bands though. Darby versus Gigi. Yeah. So my other, on that point, Dave, my other thought about it was like, do I just do like the early 80s guys and do like you said, Rollins, Danzig, Gigi, Darby, the X guys that I can't think of their names, and the woman. Like, should I just do all those as well? So I want to keep doing versions of this, and then maybe do like a super bracket at some point where all the winners go against each other. Mostly, I wanted to kind of figure out how the hell to use this website, which, as you could tell, I haven't completely figured out yet, and I have to get it together on that front. But this was a fun way of doing this, a fun exercise. I think actually tough. Like there was points where I'll be honest with you, I felt that the stream stalled a little bit on me, not because of quality issues. I'm just saying because kind of didn't know who to pick. I think my criteria wasn't the best criteria, and that's something maybe we can collaborate on and work on in the future. But it's hard like that. I still don't feel good about like some of these matchups. The only matchups I feel great about as far as the results, like I disagreed with the Joey Cape Matt Skiba one, but that's my own taste. I'm okay putting Fat Mike over Tony Sly, as much as I love Tony Sly. And I was pretty okay with Graffin over Davey Havoc, although I don't think that would be like an odd sporting event because the matchup was just not great. It was odd. And even in the main event, I thought it was hard. Like this would be fun too. Maybe in the future, if we get one of you guys on like a Zoom or something, and we figure things out from there, because I think this could be very fun. Also in the future, I just want to find representation. We need to do this with songs. I was thinking of like album openers, even from a single band. Tim versus Mike is inevitable. And like I said, a huge cross section of fan bases, but you can definitely feel the Clash. And Tim obviously loves the Clash, but there's some different camps in there for sure. Because both of them, in contrast to, I think, a lot of other people on this list, there's definitely a polarizing factor. I don't think Joey Cape is that polarizing. Skibo a little bit. Lindbergh a little bit. Tony Sly is not that polarizing. I don't think Dr. Graffin is super polarizing. Davey Havoc, some people might not like the post 2000 stuff, but it is what it is. I think Mike and Tim are, you either love them or you hate them. You can list all the reasons why you have an issue with one or why you don't have the issue with the other. There's a lot going on with both guys on that front. This was fun. Good to get back in the stream. This wasn't the most active stream. We kind of spent most of it just watching a movie, but we've got some conversations off of there. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to keep either commenting on this video and another comment on the community tab when I throw these questions out there. What other type of brackets do you want to do? What other type of content do you want? Do we want to do any? We can do some reaction videos in general for some stuff. We got to be careful. We can't have a ton of popular music in anything we do. But if you have another YouTuber, which I've communicated with a couple of them, Finn McKenty's cool reacting to his videos. The Punk Historian is cool reacting to his videos. If there's another one you want to see a reaction and we can participate in it, just let me know. If it's a content creator that's not like a huge corporation, I will generally like to reach out to them just to get the permission, because we are kind of watching their video and broadcast it to people. And theoretically, even if there's only a few of us, taking views away from them. So I like to generally reach out to those people if possible. Like I said, those two people have given me their permission, so we can go on there and thank you thank you to them for that. Easy for me to say. What do you think about that guy's videos, man? I think him and I, we have a kind of a similar wavelength. The Dan Frampton guy, his thumbnail game is on another level. Cannot compete with that. But we tend to have videos about the same things around similar times. And I look at my analytics, and people tend to find my videos through his. I don't know if he does live streams or not, though. I have not reached out to. The reason why I haven't reached out to him is just because like I started finding his content right about the time I got super busy. So some of the stuff I'm not as familiar with the way I am with some of those other guys. So it is what it is. But guys, I am gonna have to get out of here in about like 1 minute. I gotta go pick up my daughter. I almost forgot. Looked at the time. Oh shoot, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. So I gotta go ahead and do that. I plan on doing this again next Tuesday. Again, send in topics, send in whatever you got for me. Small chance I'll go on Twitch on Thursday. If I do, I'll put it on the community tab. But guys, I'm done, man. I got to get out of here. I will talk to you guys at least next week. Look out maybe for a video on Sunday.